Big Sky Howdy, and welcome to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio, coming to you from the top of the continent in Montana, and with a guest from way up north near the Arctic Circle in the Alaska.
Lord Duke, how are you?
Lord Hackenbrook, how are you? What's the weather like up there? I heard you were getting a little warm snap, and it was actually above zero.
Yeah, it got all the way to 8 degrees, so it felt like I should have put the shorts on when I got out of the clinic today.
Woohoo! Nice temps all the way up to 8 degrees. Yeah, you can get a suntan now. You look like you got some sunburn from it, so you're doing good.
Yeah.
So we're having you back to give us a little updates about some of the stuff that's been happening over the course of your last year, and you got to go out and do a little actually dedicated to let's look around for Bigfoot sort of expedition earlier in the year, and then one of your own spots you had a weird occurrence happen. So let us know what happened then.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, so I'll start back a little bit. The place that we went to in episode 89 that you recorded, we went back out there again, and the river was up at a level that you can't get across to where we were at. In fact, that's where it usually is. When we got out there the first time, it was a lot lower, and we were able to get into some areas that you can't cross, you know. So we found some really old tracks, but nothing really exciting, and nothing much happened there. So that was interesting, but not so much, I guess.
Oh, it was worth it. You went back, took another look around, see if there's still hanging around a little activity. And they probably
just
weren't.
Vague. Well, the weird thing that you mentioned, went out to my gold mining claim, and I still don't know what to make of this. This still just kind of blows my mind. But I had a friend out there. He was working. We dug holes in on my claim, and we were running some of the material. They were test holes. Okay, so we're running the material through his sluice, and earlier in the day I had let out one of these whistles, you know, for the dog. I brought my dog with me, and he had his dog, and you know, anyway, so he's just, oh gosh, maybe you got to understand this terrain. We're up in there where there's really high mountain sides, and it's a narrow enclosure. So it comes down like this, and it's a pretty narrow spot. Excuse me. And so there's not a lot of room in there, and it's the fall. The foliage is all gone, and I've gone over the little creek and up to one of the piles nearby that we dug with a little excavator and piled the dirt up along these trails that we made with the excavator. And so I'm loading dirt and rocks into these 5-gallon buckets and just walking them. And so you can imagine these are 60 pounds each, and I'm not walking very far. I can see my buddy from where I'm at running the sluice. And so I hear loud whistle, just like the one I did for the dogs. You know, you put your finger in your mouth and you do one sharp blast. And I thought, oh, maybe he found something. Maybe found some gold in there, and or else he wants to tell me something. I'm not sure. But I finished filling up the bucket, and I can see him. He's maybe 50, 60 feet, you know, maybe, a little bit further. So I grabbed these buckets and I tootled down there, and I set him down. He's going to load him into the sluice. And I said, what did you want? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, what, you whistled at me. Were you wanting to show me something or what? I didn't whistle at you. I said, come on, man. He goes, I don't even know how to whistle. He says, I can't whistle. I said, you didn't whistle for me. He says, no, this guy doesn't, believe in, he has no opinion about Bigfoot one way or the other. He doesn't really care, or anything like that.
Right.
And I said, now I'm starting to get a little bit alarmed. I said, I thought maybe you were calling for the dogs or you wanted to show me something in the gold. He goes, no, I didn't whistle for you. So I'm going, okay, this is weird, because I heard a loud whistle between me and him. I can see him. I can see the mountain over here, less than 100 yards. And there's one, I'm up against the other one, and all the foliage is off, the ground. So
right. There's no ground cover. There's nowhere for anything to hide.
There's no ground cover. But it was loud. It wasn't, right. It wasn't a mistake.
Well, you guys keeping in mind that you guys are running noisy equipment. It had to be really loud for you to hear it.
Well, it was loud in my ears, and he didn't hear it at all.
Okay.
He didn't hear it. He didn't know what I was talking about. I said, you didn't hear a whistle? He goes, no. Now, granted, he's running a small water pump and, what have you. And, maybe, I suppose I could have drowned it out. But it sounded like it was practically next to me. Right. I wouldn't have had to make an effort. If I was going to throw a rock where I thought I heard the noise, I wouldn't have had to make an effort to throw it. And I got to thinking about it, and I was trying to describe it, and I said, it was just like when I whistled for the dogs. And I thought, it was just like when I whistled for the dogs.
Exactly like when you whistled for the dogs.
It was just like when I whistled for the dogs. Now, that just creeped me out. I'm sorry, because it just, it sounded almost as close as inside this little hotel room that I'm in, for work. So it wasn't, there was no mistaking. I didn't hear a bird, or it was a whistle just like I made. And I thought, well, I've heard that, Bigfoot, what have you, can mimic and will mimic, but I didn't, unless it was like a throwing of the voice kind of a thing, or something that I can't see or whatever. There was nowhere for something big to hide, which I got to talking to one of my young native friends here, and he gets on the internet. He's
right.
Like, and I'm like, what are you looking for? He goes, well, just give me a second, And he comes up and he goes, it says here, little people whistle.
The urchin rabbit.
That I'm not liking at all. And then he calls his mom, who's, he's a city native, and if anybody gets offended at what I'm saying, you don't live up here, because that's what he would call himself. And his mom's not, and she's like, yeah, that sounds like little people. And it's like, no, I don't want little people on my mind. It's not what I'm, unless of course they can tell me where the gold is,
Yeah. So, or unless they're upset that you're going to take their gold.
Well, I don't know that they got much use for it, but
they're not mining it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it's little people. I'm not saying it's Bigfoot. All I'm saying is I heard a really loud whistle, and my buddy wasn't putting me on. I could feel that,
And rightfully, you shouldn't have had any kind of noise there, because everything around you is pretty much out in the open. There was no place for anything to be hiding.
No, it just wasn't. There just wasn't. It just, and if it come from the direction that it sounded like it clearly came from, granted, it could have been behind me and maybe echoed off of the mountain, because the mountains, like I said, who knows? Yeah. All I know is that was creepy, and
yeah.
And I'm looking forward to digging up some, yellow metal out of there. So I'm hoping I don't have any kind of problems, and I know that's going to sound strange to if anybody My family already thinks I'm crazy, so I can.
Crazy old gold miner out there seeing Bigfoot and getting video of their tracks.
Yeah, they love me anyway. So. That's his papa. It's all good. But yeah, so that was a little unsettling when I got to thinking about it afterwards.
Yeah. And again, you're not just like right down the block from your house or something. You're kind of out in the middle of frickin' nowhere again when this is going on.
Yeah, it's about 3 hours down a mining road and then up in the hill a little bit, and
right.
So yeah, we're I mean, there's a lot of miners around there. There's a lot of activity, but it's not the city, that's for sure. It's it's a good ways from where I'm at, number of hours, from where I live. But yeah, that was weird. That was weird. The other thing was a while back, and I'll be a little vague about like locations and stuff like that, just a little, because it wasn't my spot. Not my property. And,
right. And I've talked to the owner, and he wants us to be a little bit vague about exactly where it is. So we'll ballpark it within 100 or so miles, maybe.
Yeah.
Or less. Or maybe more.
You go too far south, and you're going to be in the ocean. Okay.
Yeah. So it's somewhere in this general area of this one peninsula. And that's about all we're going to tell you.
Yeah.
But before you go any further, I want to just jump in here and say,
sure.
I'm trying to get the other person that was involved in this. I haven't been able to reach him recently here and get him on the show too, to talk about his part in the whole thing. But also has been on the show previously, famed wildlife and Bigfoot artist ROBROY MENZIES. So this is like combined World Bigfoot Radio Expedition up here. We had both of you guys out on this.
Yeah, we went out to this one gentleman's property, and he'd been, he'd had a little activity, and we, he was really strongly, you don't talk about this, and I was like, well, can I talk about what happened? What my experience was. I'm not going to say where it was, and it was like, kind of begrudgingly allowed for that. So
yeah, we'll narrow it down to Alaska. Somewhere on the coast.
Yeah. But if anybody knows where Les Stroud had his Alaska encounter, they'll know that I can say this, it's within 50 to 100 miles radius of that spot, which was kind of interesting. So if there's any, crew that dropped him off and stuff like that, you can narrow it down within 50 to 100 miles. But yeah, so
it's not ridiculously far from the abandoned Port Chatham either.
No, not ridiculously. So, but it's all over up here. It really is. And
yeah.
I have friends out in the villages that send me pictures or tell me about different things. So in fact, one of that little you got a thumbnail on one of your episodes with a little fish drying hut that was shared with me as a little person's fish drying hut, and it's pretty odd. It's a pretty odd picture. But anyway,
what's the backstory on that? Do you know the person that got it?
No, not really. It's way up north, way up past.
Yeah, it looked like tundra. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got like about 5 different geographical zones and climates up in Alaska. Alaska's about 2.5 times the size of Texas. We tease Texans that if they get too uppity, we'll divide Alaska in half and they'll be the 3rd largest state. So, but anyway, so I live in South Central. You get over the Alaska Range Mountains and you get into the interior where I am right now. I'm in Fairbanks right now where it's really cold. And then you get further out of the interior and you start getting up more towards the Brooks Range and all that area. And you go over those mountains, you're on the North Slope. So it's up more in that area. And, they
way the hell up there.
Yeah, they get footprints and you don't go to a village that they don't know about Bigfoot and little people. I mean, they just, it's just common, knowledge. And since I work at different times in different villages, I ask, and I haven't been in one that it was like, yeah, well, yeah, they live up that way, so.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, and I know more people up in Alaska than just you, and
Yeah.
they all tell me the same thing. Oh yeah, if you go to the outlying areas, they know exactly where the Sasquatch are. Oh, they're over this way.
Yeah. But they really talk even more about the little people.
Yeah. Well, they're more scared of the little people, I think.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So anyway, we go out to this one place this one summer. Okay. And he's had rocks thrown onto his roof, and he built a beautiful cabin, on the water. It's just really nice. Rocks on the roof and, other occurrences. And, if Rob comes on, he'll tell you about how he got the bejesus scared out of him by can't remember if it was it was a really loud wood knock, just a stone's throw, from one point where he was standing over to somewhere else. Got that whole feeling of, I need to get to the cabin, and so we get there, and there's nobody out there. You don't walk to a place like this. You take a boat,
or a plane
for a couple hours, to get there. And if there's anybody else in the area, it because you hear them coming from miles away, but he's going to come in on a plane or a boat or something like that. And as far as I know, all the old Japanese soldiers, from World War II, they're getting a little ripe by now,
So probably not them. Yeah, we can pretty much discount that.
Yeah. So anyway, so we're out there, and the first night, okay, so he's got the three of us, and then there's three young guys that kind of hired to put up drywall and stuff like that. And when they finish, work for the day, their deal is they get to go out in the boat and go fishing. But we were kind of done with all that, and everybody was in the cabin. And been a long day, and I'm 57, so I'm not thrilled about the idea that I got to get into a top bunk. But I'm kind of except for these other guys that are in a different room, I'm nominated for the top bunk. So I'm getting up into I get up into this top bunk, and I hear they're throwing rocks at the skiff because you can't get the boat in, to the shore. You got to take a little skiff in. They're throwing rocks at the skiff. And I think, yeah, okay, nah, it's going to be over. If I climb down out of this thing, it's going to be over by the time I get out there. I'm not, and everybody's in the cabin. I know everybody's in the cabin. Well, he's got this Zoom sound activated recording device that is mounted to a tree about 50, 75 yards, maybe a little further from the water. And number of things get picked up on this recorder. But this incident, you listen to it and you can hear large rocks going skaploosh clunk, skaploosh clunk, hitting the stones underneath the water. So the Zoom has to activate by the first sound it hears, and then it'll record for so long until either the activity stops or a certain amount of time, I think, after the activity stops. And so you hear the spelunking, of the rocks on this recorder, and and they're not pebbles, you know. They're making a pretty good.
Well, yeah, if you can hear them hit the bottom and go thunk into the bottom, they're not like little pebbles.
And it's being picked up by a recorder that's 75 yards from the water on a tree in the woods.
Right.
Okay. So that's one thing. That was the first thing. And I'm trying to think of these events in kind of chronological order. And I don't remember if the crapper event or the whoop happened next. But I do remember we got to walking around, and almost anywhere you go, if you're getting out into the woods out here, you know, in this general area, you start climbing almost whenever you're either climbing uphill or you're climbing downhill, you know. And if you got a flat spot, you build on it, and the rest of it, you know.
It's just like here, we don't even have enough flat spots to do any farming.
Yeah. So this so I think this event came next, but and it was a number of things kind of tied together, and I kind of had to thread them together after they were all known. But the first thing that happened was Rob's dog. So the way you build to keep bears out and stuff like that is you build high, and you know these stairs are, you know, the porch is probably 10-12 feet above the ground, I'm thinking, and the stairs are like a drawbridge. Okay, when you leave, you use a winch and you hoist the stairs back up, so there's nothing, you know, but the post that the thing is on. And so the dog been running up and down those stairs, you know, since we got there, and no problem. And he's down at the bottom of the stairs, and he's looking at me, and I'm kind of whining, you know, and I'm like, you know, Rob's dog's name's Banjo, and I'm like, come on, Banjo, come on. And he won't come up the stairs, and he keeps glancing over that other direction towards what, you know, I find out later is the hole in the ground with a toilet seat set on a box over it.
Yeah, the temporary outhouse.
And I didn't know this, but I just thought, well, that's weird, you know, he just doesn't want to come up. But he was coming up and down all the time, you know. It was okay, well, whatever, you know, dog doesn't want to come up. A little bit later, we hear the other fella, the owner, go, guys, because he's, you know, this little temporary outhouse, like you put it, is it's only about, you know, 50, 100 feet from the cabin. You don't want to go walking too far in the middle of the night, you know.
Right. Yeah. Not convenient.
You dig a hole, you know. You dig a hole, you cover it up when you're done with it. But so, you know, there's maybe just a little bit of light foliage to give you some privacy, but you know, you're not far, you know. So you can hear, guys, something just growled at me. And you know, I know these things are real. I'm totally on board. So, but I'm thinking you're a little eager.
Who's getting growled at?
The owner.
Oh, okay.
Sitting on a crapper. He said something growled at me, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, you know. And my internal feeling was you're a little eager, you know. You're pretty. So, you know, that was that, you know. Remember, several incidents tied together. So about an hour later, a little less, Rob has to use the same facilities, and he gets up, he's done his business, and most of us are carrying a weapon, you know, at least a sidearm or something like that. There's bears and critters out there, And you know, when trying to be delicate, but when your drawers are down, sometimes if your gun is strapped to your belt, it'll, you know, fall off if you're not careful. And his gun fell down. And he reaches down to pick it up, and he sees this track within, you know, drop your phone, drop your gun distance of the crapper. And he fires up his phone, starts recording, and you can hear him talking and saying, well, I guess that could be one of us. And he told me, he says, I'm trying to be real logical and kind of, you know, be real objective and impartial and he says, but inside I'm thinking, crap, that's a Bigfoot track. but on the recording, he's like, well, you know, it looks a little bigger, and he's trying to stomp down next to, you know, he says, no, that's not exactly the shape, but inside he's going, that's a big. And it's right there. I mean, it's right there in some, you know.
Yeah, I haven't seen the video or anything, but I'm presuming that you guys had dug the ground up to make a hole there to put the temporary outhouse over. So there's like freshly moved dirt right there for a track.
Yeah, it's fairly fresh. I think he had dug it up on a previous trip, but
right.
So it's
but
not
with their weight. That's still enough. That's like they're going to leave a nice track there.
And it was right there facing uphill.
Mm-hmm.
And so he comes back and then they decide they got some plaster of Paris. They're going to cast it, you know. Nice. And so, you know, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't look like it's going to make much of a cast, but I've since learned there's a whole lot more detail that gets in that dirt than you can just see with your eye. And you put some good hydrocal or plaster of Paris down, it's amazing what comes up, you know. Yeah. Fingerprints, dermal ridges, whatever you want to call them. Yeah. I didn't expect to see all the detail that came out of that thing. It was incredible.
The prettiest, I guess, but hopefully it'll
go for it.
Okay.
I'm just videotaping, so you just this is it. First time picking it up.
Okay. Released.
Gonna be heavy.
Yeah. Perfect. We can wash that with the boat, on the boat.
Oh man, look at that. That is definitely a foot.
Yeah. What the fuck did we do? Oh, sorry. Boop.
Beep.
What the hell is this?
Wash down the boat. Spray it down.
I'm really gonna be curious to see how this spider.
We got a track picture from here in Montana that, interestingly, was from Coloma the year before I went there the first time, which is why I went there. One of my friends who's not a Bigfooter, is just a photographer, was walking around there after a rainstorm and found a whole line of tracks and got a couple really good pictures. And one of them, you can actually see the dermal ridges on the foot because it had just stepped in the mud and it left. You could see it on the damn picture because the photography was so good. But other than that, yeah, you need casting to bring that out most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I didn't expect, you know, I was there when they cast it, and I didn't expect it to amount to much, but it's actually really good. And so when I asked the other guy, I said, what direction did you get growled at from? And he says, well, downhill. And, you know, downhill, there's a big tree fall over, big root ball. And so it makes you wonder, was there something between the root ball and the water and something uphill growled to kind of distract and get the attention away? Mm-hmm. Because the track was coming from the water uphill, yeah. This just,
you never know, but they do that kind of misdirection stuff, so it's totally within the realms of possibility.
Well, you know, it's just speculation, but you almost get the feeling of, you know, once something got free to move uphill, it went there. You know, you almost feel like you're getting flipped off just a little bit, you know, like there.
They've done that with us a few times. They've left obvious tracks, like the last trip we were up there in the Skalkaho, and we went downstream about 10 miles and checked out some stuff and came back, and it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's an obvious fresh track right next to Mike's tent. They were there in the middle of the damn day checking out the camp.
Well, you know, they're supposed to, and apparently are, so good at hiding their tracks that when you got one that's
That obvious, it's like they
Dude,
left it there for you to find.
2.5, 3 feet from the crapper you're sitting on.
Yeah,
And,
this was the same thing. This was right next to his tent. I mean, literally right next to his tent.
yeah, in softer dirt, and it's like, yeah, buddy. By the way.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I had that one leave that 19-inch track right in front of my tent that one time too, and it was like there was no other place you could have left a track that I would have noticed it. It was the only place with the ground scraped clean where there was dirt that you could leave a track and a stupid human would notice it. And his big toe was about 2 inches from the zipper on my tent, 19-inch track. No, that wasn't obvious at all. Oh,
Yeah.
God.
well, and so now afterwards, I'm kind of like going, you know, it was only a few moments before he hollered out, guys, something just growled at me. That banjo was at the bottom of the stairs, just kind of little lightly whining, looking at me, looking in that direction, and not coming up those stairs. So the dog is acting weird and looking in the direction of what later was something growled at me. And then a little while after that, we find a fresh, beautifully castable, I think it was maybe about 16 inches, but it was kind of wide and pudgy and, you know, track.
Footprint. Yeah, I can't remember what Rob said exactly, if it was 16 or 17 inches, but I remember it was in that range. I'm leaning towards 17, but we'll have to have him tell us.
And it was a good 8 inches wide. So all those three things happened in sequence and within about an hour's time, you know. And so that was pretty significant. The other things, you know, we walked around on the hills. We found impressions and tracks and, you know, and things like that in the hills. But so. The audio recorder. So it was either around the time of the rocks throwing, or I think it was around the time of this growl and this track. Listen to this thing, and it's got, you know, it's like a game cam, right? It gets activated, and sometimes
it records for a while. And,
sometimes you miss the very, very beginning of what activated it because something had to happen for it to turn on. And
right.
And then you have these clips at different times. And so listening to this one, and I'm thinking, what the heck is that? It's really low pitched, deep. I'm thinking, is that a heartbeat? I mean, it sounds weird. It's deep and it's thump, 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 you know? And I listened to it, you know, a number of times, and then it hit me. Something big and heavy ran past
The recorder.
the recorder. I don't know how close, but do you realize how heavy you got to be for just the thud of your foot fells to activate? It wasn't rust. It wasn't tree branch. It wasn't branches snapping.
Just the impact of the weight on the ground was making that much noise.
I thought it was a heartbeat, like somebody was standing next to it. You know, that's how low and quiet it was. And it hit me. Something ran past. It sounded just like something running past it. And that I'm kind of getting just a slight goosebumps right now just talking about it, because when it hit me that's what it was. It really sounded like something heavy running past it. It was so heavy that it was just this very almost imperceptible, but you could definitely hear it on there, low pitched thud, you know, that just kind of shook. It's almost like when we have an earthquake up here and you can kind of almost hear the rustling, you know, of the,
right.
You know, it's hard to describe if you haven't heard it, but
Dude,
so,
I had one run behind me one time when I was in the woods, and he waited until I turned around, and then apparently he was trying to duck from one hiding spot to another and get past me without me seeing him. And he had to be within 20 feet behind me. And I heard like thud, 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 and that was it. And it sounded like a freaking horse was going behind me. You could feel the ground shake, and I never saw him.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was pretty significant on the recorder. Then there was another time that it was just Rob and I walking, and the owner was in the house, in the cabin. I kind of hate to call it a cabin. It's like a small. It's like a house, but it's a cabin.
Yeah. Just for a little backstory before you continue on here, the owner initially had contacted me before you guys even went up there, and I had already talked to him about it. And he is not like on the boat with Bigfoot or thinking they're real or anything. As a matter of fact, he wanted it to be anything but Sasquatch on his property, which would be like another annoyance that he didn't want to have to put up with, besides marauding bears, et cetera, et cetera. Right. But he was open-minded enough to look into it and to pay attention to what was going on. And he made audio recordings, and he's had some other folks up there taking a look around the property and whatnot. And we're absolutely convinced that there's Sasquatch there. In fact, we'd be surprised if there weren't, as there aren't any other cabins or anything around this place. He is really out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and I don't think it should matter, but it does to some people. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, I don't care if you spend most of your time barefoot and you live in in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, or if you're the highest paid professional. But some people care about that, and I'll just say this about this guy. Guy's a highly paid professional. That he's not looking for attention. This is why it's so vague. He's not looking for attention. He's not looking for money. He's
already got plenty of money. He's not worried about that.
Yeah, it takes money to have that kind of boat to get out there and several hours away and haul all that stuff up and build.
And buy the property and make the small house on stilts that you want just for a cabin that you're only going to use a few times a year. Yeah, this is not anybody that's looking for attention or needs to try and fake anybody about Sasquatch.
Yeah, you go out and build a place in the middle of nowhere like that because you like being out there by yourself without a lot of attention. You're not looking.
And you don't want things that throw rocks at your boat and slap the side of your cabin.
No. So Rob and I are walking up the trail. We're going uphill again. You're either going uphill or downhill or side hill. We hear a noise, and I won't say that either of our minds identified it immediately. Well, let's put it this way. When these things happen, anybody talks to me, they would know. I have no problem saying, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, a lot of these other weird things that go on are real. They would think of me as, I got a Bigfoot crossing sign on the back of my four-wheeler. They would think of me as, really likes,
That's so awesome. I want one.
Yeah. And, but when these things happen, you don't go there right away in your head. Yeah. It kind of surprises me, to be honest with you, because really, except for something that happened almost 20 years ago that I kind of think was a prelude, but it was kind of weak, but it was a prelude. Anyway, I really just started, having any kind of experience with this stuff just a little more than, but I think it was 2 years now. It was the fall of 2018 when we had all those cracks. Yeah. So, but I've not had any, I figure it's just no way thousands of people are lying from right. All, it's just ridiculous.
Well, and you ran into the evidence yourself, which, we've been showing here some off and on from the previous episode while we've been talking. And when you could spend an entire day walking around filming tracks and there's so many tracks you get bored with filming them and you start questioning, why am I even continuing to do this? Because there's hundreds of them. There's plenty of evidence that's real.
Yeah. It's that was crazy, because it was like, okay, this isn't any better than the other couple dozen I just took, so I'm not gonna film that one.
But especially thanks for filming that one where there was the double tree snap right next to each other with the giant tracks right underneath it. Thank you for filming that. Yeah, that big.
2 trees that big around, over 6 foot high, snap.
In opposite directions.
2 big opposite directions.
Yeah.
Yeah, like something.
And you could see where it planted its feet beneath the trees when it snapped both of them. You can see both tracks clearly.
See it? It's all flat.
Yeah, and I can see the toes.
And the toes.
Hard to see in the video.
Right, I know it's hard. And then you got that one over there. I don't want to disturb anything, but you got this where you can see the toes. See the toes?
Mm-hmm.
Right there's the toes.
Hold on, let me get
the hill
these
comes
breaks.
To here.
Look
see the hill mark?
Hold on.
Right here. Watch.
Look at those brakes.
See, are you? Yeah, and you can see where he just grabbed it. Look, he stood here. That's where his footprints are. Stood from there to here and said, "Pow!" and broke those off. Look at all the trees around you. That's a big tree.
Yeah.
So we're close to the area. I know we are.
You know what? I need to go back and get the tape measure.
Okay. But you see? Oh, yeah. They grabbed that mother and just pow. And you can kind of see where he stood too, right here, and disturbed the ground with the sand right here. Mm-hmm. And then that footprint, you can see it. Look at that one, where he stood right here and flattened the earth. So, and look right here, look at this. See this? Look right here, that trail, all the way through there. What would break that right there and lean it over? See it?
I got another one.
There you go. Then you're looking at these, look. Just broke. And nothing else is, look, nothing else but that. And then if you go over here, there's another spot. So let's try.
And that's all recorded on the audio. So here's the interesting thing. So because it was a one whoop, and it was a whoop, real high, loud, and come across the water and bounced around the mountains. And
Wow.
so the zoom recorder, 75 yards from the water, got activated. So you only catch like a microsecond half of the original whoop. But if you really crank it up, you can hear the echo where you hear the whole whoop.
Nice.
It's hard. It's hard. You gotta have good equipment and and a good speaker. But it's real fast because that thing triggers when it hears something, and it caught just and then you hear, guys, you hear that? Is that you? No. Yeah.
Cool.
So that was those were the main events. I think there were some other things that went on, but I can't remember.
I know Rob had a few things happen to him when he was off by himself that were pretty freaking freaky too, that he'll talk about when I get him on.
Yeah, it was and then there was one evening, and I kind of, I read some of the comments on the last episode that I did with you, and they were like, well, that guy he's pretty arrogant. He didn't respect enough. I don't worry about too much, but I got to admit there's moments where it seems to be a little out of your control, of a sense of. So I guess what I was getting at is I didn't mind getting off up the hill and over, build a little fire, be by myself, play the guitar a little bit, whatever. And then there came one evening, it was kind of a misty, foggy night, and I just got the feeling I'm not going up there tonight. I'm not climbing up that hill. I'm not going up and over on that trail. I couldn't get myself to do it. And I don't think of myself as somebody that's generally scared, but I did not want to go up there that night. And I can't tell you why. I can't even tell you that it's significant. Maybe it was just the fall. It was not a moment. It was a moment that was a little atypical for me. I normally would have just kind of done my thing, But
Yeah, old Viking legend and Scottish legend and legends from a few other places around the world. You don't go out when it's foggy because that's when the monsters are out. They prowl around in the fog.
Yeah, there's a lot of myth and legend, and that there's I'm not saying things are. There's a reason why they're called myths and legends, but there's a lot of reason for those myths and legends. So let me just put it that way. And there's some fact that spawned those things.
Yeah, and some of it's nebulous. You don't know why there's these old myths and legends. Well, you don't go do this. Well, why don't you do that? We don't remember anymore. But my great-great-grandpa told me to never do that. Oh, okay. And then there's ones that are more specific that we still have, like when I had Rich on and he was talking about incantation against the Leshy, where apparently the female Sasquatch or, Leshy, Almasti, whatever you want to call them over there in the Russian area, would actually kidnap men so often that they made an incantation to keep them at bay that the church is passing around. If you ever have one of these things try to kidnap you, here's what you recite to make it go away. Well, they don't come up with things like that unless there's a reason for it. It had to be like fairly common for them to come up with something like that.
Yeah, it's for folks that I get it. You either haven't really looked into it, or you've looked into it enough you just don't want to believe it. There's way too I've heard people say there's no evidence. It's like you have to be going, there's no evidence. There's no evidence, There's so many people. There's just so many people of all walks of life, and they're just not all. They're just
No.
How many of them need to be telling the truth for it to be true?
Just one.
Just one.
You know, and if you want to look at, you know, here's one thing that I like to hear, you know, more people talk about what you're just mentioning, and Wes mentions this a lot on Sasquatch Chronicles. You know, who are you going to believe this story from? You want the story from a judge? I've had judges on my show. You want the story told you by police officers? I've had them on the show. Would you believe the military if they told you? I've had them on the show.
Right.
Like, who are you going to believe? You got people from every imaginable degree of veracity and every walk of life have seen these beings and talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. And then you know, and you know, another YouTuber, you know, mentions the fact that, think about this. You know, it's somebody that you know, you love, you respect, generally speaking. But when it comes to them saying, hey, I saw such and such, you've got no choice other than to believe them or call them a liar.
Yeah.
Well, you were drunk, you were there. Now, they're telling you flat out that they weren't. Either Uncle Joe is, you know, telling you the truth, or he's a liar.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, all these people are not liars, you know. And what I experienced, I'm not lying about. You know, and I'm not mistaken about it either. I've never claimed more than what I could say happened.
Right.
I can tell you what I think it was, but I'll say I think.
Yeah.
But what happened, and like us being paced out, we're in an area where those big snaps are, where there's some X's, and we're walking out.
Where you're walking around filming Bigfoot tracks all day long.
You're to the right of us, something quietly with us. And I've heard of this for a couple of years, you know, of listening to hundreds of shows. And it's like, okay, stop real quick. And step. Oh, crap, you got to be kidding me. Just wait, don't move. Nothing. Don't matter how long you wait. Nothing. Okay, let's walk. Stop. Step. I want to cuss right now. Crap. You know,
I've had it happen to me, man. It's disconcerting. And if you do that little trick and you stop a couple times and you hear those couple extra steps, ain't no doubt about what it is, because it's not quadruped. It's bipedal. It's either human or a Bigfoot.
So now either I'm making this up in line, or something paced us out, you know, while we were walking out. And like I said in that last show that I did, I remember watching videos of people, and they would come across something significant. Maybe somebody got. I remember one guy. I don't even know if I haven't watched much of anything in a long time now. I just, you know, but I remember one guy got hit right in the square in the middle of a backpack with a rock, you know, and I remember another guy, you know, they heard some things going on. I can remember this common theme of, okay, all right, we need to go. It's time to go now. And I can remember thinking on multiple occasions, why? This is why you're out here. Why now? Things just started to happen.
Yeah.
And until that first night that, okay, we're finding tracks. Okay, now something's moving around us when we've got these big breaks. And I'm thinking, okay, I wouldn't mind doing this again, but I think I'm done right now.
That's enough for today anyhow. I might go home now.
And one side of my brain is saying, well, you just got started. The other side is going, no, we're good. We're good right now. I've had enough. I'm big enough swig out of this cup. We'll come back, but I'm ready to go. So yeah, I get it now. I get it.
Yeah, that's when the sane part of your brain has an argument with the curious part of your brain. And the best Bigfoot researchers, usually the curious part wins too often.
Well, it is fascinating, you know, and I'm not a researcher. In fact, I really, to be honest with you, I'm not that interested in looking for it anymore. I think I'm moved into the zone of, I'm going to do my thing out there, and I'm going to pay attention.
Right.
But I don't know that I'm ever going to go Bigfoot, you know.
No, you don't really need to. They'll come and find you every so often. But I mean, the fact of the matter is now that you know that they're out there, and since you know something about them, you've done some research. You know, like there's certain things you shouldn't do that'll tick them off really bad, and there's other things that probably won't bother them. And you know, if they're doing this, don't do this, and that kind of stuff. Having some basic knowledge about them keeps you a little bit safer. Just like you need to know something about grizzlies if you're going to be in grizzly territory.
Right.
So that's a degree of comfort right there. Just having some basic knowledge about these guys and how they generally operate out in the woods is really, a big balm to your shattered nerves when you realize that they're true.
Well, it's going to be interesting as I develop those claims to do some real mining. We just put some trails in and dug some holes. I'm really hoping that there's no interference because but we'll see. We'll see. I really didn't expect anything to happen on those claims. So to have that loud whistle, that still just kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what it was too. I mean, you didn't get a visual idea on anything. There was something throwing its voice or cloaked or really short that was around there making that noise. One of the other.
Something made a really loud whistle that I absolutely thought was my buddy. Yeah. I mean, again, your brain doesn't go there. You don't think that, Bigfoot, or whatever. You just think, oh, that's Glenn. What? He's calling the dogs, or he's got something to show me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, the other thing that's freaky, it wasn't just some random noise. This was exactly a clone of the dog whistle that you had done earlier.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Memory's a funny thing. I know that we can, but it wasn't very long after that it happened within hours that I'm sitting there thinking, it was just like, I was trying to describe it, just like when I whistled for the dogs, and then those words rolled in my head again. Yeah, it was just like.
As in exactly like.
Yeah, that's when it hit me, and it was like, okay, that's weird. That was my interesting year. Nothing else. Did I tell you about the one time? And yeah, again, this could have been a earthquake or something. I'll tell you about the time I was in my truck, and I don't think I'm going to do this again either. But I drove up this one area that is kind of it goes up the mountain. There's hundreds of miles of mountains behind it, but it's not used.
Right.
And this was a couple of years back. It was shortly after our track incident, and I was sitting in the truck, and I'm in this pull-off. Okay, so you got the road goes up, and you got a big pull-off. So I'm kind of parked where there's a lot of room around me.
Right.
I'm
pretty open.
comfortable. Got to leave some room around you.
Right.
But it's dark, and I don't I'll be honest with you. I don't remember if I said something out the window or if I was just thinking, if you guys are here, say something. You can say something to me. And I think I might have been paying attention to Kat's language, words for friend and stuff like that, which again, I don't think I'm going to do anymore. But so I'm in the truck, and just all of a sudden, the back of the truck, not the whole truck, not the back of the truck, just
started shimmying.
It shook like a jolt. Now, I've felt jolts like that with earthquakes. We get lots of earthquakes up here. I mean, it's just so common that you lay there in bed and you go, oh yeah, one's happening.
Yeah.
It might be a gentle roll at first, but then
but how does an earthquake explain half the truck shaking and the other half not? You'd have to be straddling a fault line for that.
Well, that's the thing, because it would have been the whole truck kind of rocked.
Right.
I've had that happen, but it felt like the back of the truck kind of, and I was like, you know, it kind of cuts you off there, you know, cuts off your, like, was that something, you know? And I'm thinking, I think I was being a little stupid then. You want to do it again? And nothing happens, but within just a minute or so, another car's coming up the road. So nothing else happened, and you know, well, was it an earthquake? Maybe. It didn't feel like one to me. I mean, it felt similar, but didn't feel like one. It was weird. It was weird. It was just weird, and it was just weird enough that, again, it was a little unsettling. And there's just enough unsettlingness about all this that I don't really think I want to go looking for it. I think I'm gonna pay attention. I think I'm gonna keep an eye out around me, and now that not be in the, you know, that you know, when people talk about situational awareness, you got your white zone, your red zone, your yellow zone, your red zone, you know, high alert and all that, you know, and most of us walk around in white zone. I've seen cameras of people walking out their front door past a black bear on their porch and never notice it because they're in a white zone. They just you know, open the door, go out. There's a small black bear on their porch, 3 feet from them. I saw the security camera, and you know, most of us kind of do that. You know, I'm not saying everybody, but most of us do that. And I think my situational awareness is up a little higher, and I know what to look for, and I probably will keep an eye out in those senses. But I don't think I'm going to be planning expeditions. There's too much. I think that there's just too much weirdness, you know, around it. You know.
Well, as far as that goes, you live in Alaska, so you're liable to bump into them again anyway. You've been out in areas where they're around a couple times, so by now you're probably marked. So if you go out in the middle of the woods somewhere, they'll be watching you, going, "Oh, it's Lord Hackenbrook over there."
It's the white-haired dude.
Yeah. It's that guy that we keep mistaking for Santa Claus, but he's not portly.
Not anymore. So.
Well, thanks so much for coming back and sharing your summertime expedition with us, and also the weird event out there at your gold claim. That's just really bizarre, man. I hope it's not anything negative and dangerous doing it.
Yeah, well, yeah, we just trust the Lord for His guidance and protection. But you know, hey, it was fun talking with you about it again. So enjoy.
We'll stay in touch. Never know, you might end up running into some more experiences here in the future and have to be on the show again.
Right.
All righty.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.